Welcome back to Interviews with the Pros, the podcast where we sit down with the people shaping corporate events from every angle, not just the planners, but the experts in the industry we've had the pleasure to work with at KCI. We'll speak with strategists, marketing executives, global events leads, entrepreneurs, technologists, and all kinds of specialists in different areas that make the industry move. I'm your host, Kimberly Clark, CEO and founder of KCI Management and Maestra. With 3 decades in corporate events and thousands of programs behind me, I've learned that excellence doesn't live in one role, it lives across the ecosystem. Today, I'm joined by Anthea Rowe, founder at Exmplify. In this episode, we'll be talking about how planners can position themselves as experts, exploring the difference between what they deliver instead to key metrics and results that they deliver. This conversation offers a look into elevating your career as a planner and insights you may not otherwise get exposure to if you just stay in your own lane. So let's get into it. Let's introduce ourselves, but I like to make this part fun. Do you remember that question you used to get when you were younger? What do you want to be when you grow up? Can you answer that question for us and tell us what you do now that you're grown up?
Yeah, so my mother tells the story at least once a year that when I was young, around 9 or 10, I said that I wanted to be a dancer, actor, news anchor, teacher, veterinarian. So just 5 jobs.
In one.
Yeah. And so today
I can just see it like a dancing veterinarian teacher who does the news at night. I don't know.
Right. Clearly. Yeah, that's exactly the job that I have today.
Yes.
Although maybe if I worked on a cruise ship, that would be all the jobs I have. So yeah, the job that I have now, or the career I've had, has been marketing and PR, corporate communications. And, the job I have now is communication trainer, really. And I think it's not that different from like telling the news or being a teacher, because I love telling people's stories or helping people tell their own stories, and connecting people like through words. So I think it's not totally far off, but yeah, the dancing, acting, and veterinary medicine maybe didn't make it in.
You're too authentic to be an actor, I will say. And speaking of which, let's tell the audience a little bit about how we know each other. Do you remember when we started working together?
Of course I do. Oh my
Will you
gosh.
share?
Yes. Yeah. So we met when you were just launching your own event management business. And I had told everyone I knew that I thought I wanted to go into marketing communications. And a mutual friend of ours said, "You need to meet my friend Kim. She called you Kim at the time. I think she needs something to do with marketing." Didn't know anything about it, but introduced me to this Kimberly person. We talked for an hour. And I remember you started out by saying, "Just for the record, I don't have a job for you. I just wanted to have a conversation." And I was like, "Sure, great." And we talked for an hour. And then at the end of it, you said, "Okay, I know like a client of mine needs a marketing coordinator. I think you should come in and talk to them." And I feel like the rest has been history.
You nailed that job. And then I think you hired other people after you to take on that role and help them be successful in that. So, and yeah, I definitely don't go by Kim anymore. That's how you know it was an inside job with a friend back in the day. And then, so for listeners who may be new to your work, can you tell them a little bit about Exmplify and what's the core problem that you're helping people to solve?
Yeah. So Exmplify is a communication training organization. So we do keynotes and workshops for organizations and teams, and one-on-one coaching for individuals on interpersonal communication skills. And so like the core problem really that we're solving is people who are excellent at their job but struggle to translate that into creating value for the business and also for articulating that value. So, in the world of events, that's someone who's excellent at, planning and executing a great event, but they couldn't tell you how it helped the company attract new customers, right? Or they know how it attracted new customers, but they don't tell anyone. So it's really closing that gap because, I mean, that's a problem for individuals who are frustrated because they often are working really hard and are really capable, but they're not seeing the promotions they want. And it's a problem for companies because there's these great talented people who could have a lot more impact if they just knew how to tie their work to business outcomes.
So much need for your work. I can't tell you, well, I probably can tell you how many times in a week I say, oh gosh, even if just in my head, this person needs Anthea or this organization needs Anthea. So there's a lot of need for the work that you do. But help listeners further understand what's a day to day for you in what you do inside your business, and how does your service make a difference for the people that you're serving?
Yeah, so day to day, on a given day, I might be having one-on-one sessions, like coaching sessions. So that'd be an hour similar to this. It could be by Zoom or in person, where I'm working with a client who they want to build their authority at work. So say they're an account manager and they want to build more authority with clients, right? They're a 27-year-old who's excellent at their marketing job, and they work in an agency and they have to interact with executive level clients, and they want to build their credibility and influence client decisions and have themselves taken seriously. So maybe coaching someone like that on how to communicate their expertise. Then I might be delivering like a workshop for an industry association or a keynote, because the people who need my services, yeah, they're not like, there are tons of people who are great at like shameless self promotion. Some people, talk about themselves maybe even more than there's not as much substance. What is it like? All sizzle, no steak. Those are not the clients I tend to work with. The people I work with are doing incredible work and they're just struggling to articulate it. So, yeah, those workshops on courage tree self promotion are pretty common. I do those for like industry associations, professional associations, or in tech teams. So that's kind of the balance of the work. And then sometimes I'll go in and do work with an intact team. We'll do maybe a workshop to get everybody using the same language. So something, I might do is have an initial workshop with the team where we talk about what are the business outcomes that we're all driving. One was an in-house marketing team who, like many, they had many internal clients. So they were like a service provider. And they were struggling with how do we say no to requests, right? Without looking
Yeah.
like we're saying no. But we know for the business, we can't be making like posters and, running webinars for every salesperson who wants them. The company needs us focused on certain things. So how do we be a service provider who makes smart, agrees to the right things and then declines things that don't make sense? So might do a workshop like that and then work with individual team members or work with the director of that team on how they report their results to execs.
Yeah. And how many organizations need that, especially with their corporate events teams, how to say no to the event, right? Oh, we need to do this trade show. Of course you do. Yet another one. No, we don't. So speaking of that, we're both in the professional services industry. You've worked with KCI enough to be dangerous to know enough about the events industry. I believe you have definitely expertise and deep knowledge. What do you think, not just based on your work with us, but in the events industry, is the biggest misconception about our industry? What's the biggest kind of like thing that you'd think it's one thing and it's another? What's our misconception?
Yeah. And I mean, this probably isn't new. I think it's like the treating corporate event planners or marketers, executive assistants who plan corporate events, treating them like party planners. And I know so many people have that frustration. And, from the CEO's perspective, though, if what you do seems to be just that, if you're just booking the hotel room, right? If you're just like booking the travel, you seem to be just like the party planner. So I think the biggest misconception is that people who plan business events are party planners when they're not, right? They are strategic marketers, or they can be, and events are just a lever. And I think about it like in my own career. So my background was communications, PR. And I mean, I would do write a lot of media releases, or, I used to use fax machines to like fax out, press, I know I'm aging myself, to fax out like press releases or host like media conferences. And it's like, well, I can't use some of those channels now because the world has evolved, but those were levers that I could pull. Similarly, like events are just levers that you can pull in order to achieve a business goal, right? Whether it's engaging your employees, whether it's driving customer loyalty, whether it's driving pipeline or lead gen. Like, so events are a tool that smart marketers use. So I think the biggest misconception around event planners is that they're just planners and they're not business people. And the best ones, I mean, as you know, as I learned, I think from the KCI team, is that the best event planners are business people first.
And we teach a lot of that in Maestra. We are really trying to teach, don't be an order taker, be the trusted advisor, right? Be the consultant, be the guy, speak with conviction, lead with authority, project manage. And that's really so key. So I love that. And it's true. You speak like you are right in our industry. Okay. So knowing that this mistake is prevalent in our industry, what's the one thing planners should always do to ensure success in their role and avoid this pitfall? What should they always do?
They should always know what business problem the event is trying to solve.
So true. Amen.
And I know that's in probably your work and courses or content around, like, because I know that's how KCI works even, right? Is what's the business goal? But I've also seen lots of organizations who will say, well, the goal is for, connection, or the goal is training or teaching. And you're like, that's not a goal, right? It's not measurable. How do we know we've hit it? And even attendance numbers are not necessarily good goals either, right? Those may be things you can measure, but saying like, oh, we want to have X people, 300 people attend, 300 customers attend. Like, why? How is the business going to be better? So I'd say like the number one thing is know the goal, and don't let your executive sponsor, like whoever, your CEO, your VP marketing, don't let them like if you press them for, okay, but like how will we know we're successful, right?
Don't let them off the hook.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let them don't let them say like, oh, well, we just want to like bring people together. Like, no, because you, the person organizing the event, you want to at the end of the year on your performance review to have them go, oh wow, like you create a great value for the business. But if you spent half of your year planning an event that had no measurable benefit to the company, then like they don't know whether they should promote you or not, or bonus you. So I'd say the kind of second or related piece of advice to that is make friends with your sales administrator or your CRM expert, right? Like, who is the person who knows Salesforce if you're using it? Yeah. And, best case scenario is when you start planning your customer conference, sales kickoff, VIP event, is you go to them and you say, hey, how are we setting this up in Salesforce as a campaign? How are we best going to track it? Then after the fact, you're pulling out, or asking them to pull for you, ideally. Mm-hmm. How was our revenue affected? What's our pipeline look like? And what % of the people who attended the event, renewed their license, bought some of the upsell products that we demoed at the event, right? You really need to think like a marketer and not like a party planner.
And that's what events are, right? It's experiential marketing is the fancy term for events. But again, in our audience, a lot of times they're accidental planners, we say, or the non-event professionals. So definitely not party planners ever. And that's such a common misconception. And so when you think about careers of emerging planners or accidental planners, knowing again, this mistake is prevalent, do you have any thoughts on the one thing a planner should never do? So again, trying to make sure that they avoid falling into this category of planner. They establish themselves as a integral part of the business. Any thoughts on anything they should not do?
Yeah, don't assume that people understand your business savvy. Does that make sense? So like,
yeah,
but you may know when you're planning the event, like, oh yeah, I'm trying to build customer loyalty. I'm trying to connect us to the top CFOs, in the region where we're expanding. But your executive team may not realize that. They may, all they may see is that you've booked the hotel rooms or you booked the meeting space, right?
Tactics.
So yeah, the big mistake, like I guess is related that I see people make is they're like, well, I know why I'm doing this. Nobody knows what you do, let alone why it matters. So you have to say, in order to make sure it's a seamless experience for our executive VIPs, I'm recommending we book transportation, in advance and manage it for them. Or I'm rather than just leading with the recommendation, right? Because otherwise they think it's just your opinion and they don't see your business savvy, your understanding. So my advice to people is demonstrate that you understand the business value of something you're building into your event and
And
say it.
never assume they know. Never assume that they know it. Yeah.
Never
That's
assume that
so
they know.
true. You're
No,
almost saying to lead with context, right? It's not just here's my reco, it's here's my recommendation and here's why. Let me give you the context as to why we need to do it this way.
yeah, exactly. Like someone gave me an example once of, you know, uh, a client had this was an event planner, a global event planner, and one of their clients had, listened to a podcast, and then there was something about like pre-planned wills or something, and was like, "Hey, for our big customer conference, we could give everyone like for their swag, we could give them a pre-planned will." And I know, and the poor event manager was just like how do I say no? That's a terrible idea.
Other
um,
than to say that's a terrible idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And right. So how do you politely? And so the answer was, well, what's the goal, right? The goal for the event is to deliver an exclusive feeling experience, right? Make the client feel valued and like they got access to something really unique. Okay, well, then what you're going to do is deliver them swag that makes them feel special and unique and feels exclusive, right? That doesn't fit with the experience you're trying to create. So yeah, exactly. Like have the rationale for why you're doing something and ideally tie it to like what we're trying to achieve here. Yeah.
I love that one. I've actually never heard that suggestion. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, Anthea, you have worked with so many of our team members at KCI, and thank you for that. You've been a big part of building our culture and enhancing our culture in all the years that we've worked together, which is in the 20s, I'll remind you, of years together. Anyways, yeah, that's a long time. But from your view as a comms expert, what's the one skill or the trait that you believe is non-negotiable for working in our industry? Again, I think this will help emerging planners. I think this will help even people that have, found themselves accidentally planning events. What's the trait or the skill? Non-negotiable. We have to have it in this industry.
Listening,
Oh, good one.
honestly.
Yeah.
And it's listening at every level. So it's, if it's an executive client, whether it's internal or external, right? If you work in an events agency and you're dealing with executive clients, or if you're a marketing manager, coordinator, or EA working with an exec, really listening because they're trying to tell you what they need to make the business successful. And also listening, so listening at that high organization level, and then also listening for like the little things, right? If your CEO hates the color red, then like don't propose branding that's red because she's going to hate it, right? So, listen for those little things. And I mean, this is something I learned from you, I'd say, is like you would hear, an executive at a Fortune 500 company mention like how he takes his coffee. And you'd be like, got it.
Attention.
And the next time we're out somewhere, I'll order a coffee for him and he'll be impressed that I remembered how he takes it, right? Like, so listening in that really deep sense. And then even because then you can even repeat back to people, well, I heard you say that you really cared about the speakers being trendy. So that's why I recommended these 5 potential speakers, or I heard you say it right, rather than it just being, I came
And
up
that
with
helps so much that with alignment, right?
Yeah.
When you're listening, you can be more aligned. Now, it doesn't mean you just have to listen and be off and running as the order taker. Again, it's listening to be able to use the information as power.
That's a really good point. Yeah, listening isn't just listening to take your orders. It's listening for what listening for what the executive sponsor says they need, and maybe even listening for what they haven't said, but that you detect, right?
Cues, yeah, follow the cues.
Yeah. And so, if they say like, yeah, sure, the website's looking good, but you can tell from the sound of their voice that they don't seem happy, you can say, well, we don't want to go live if it's something that you're not proud of. Like, what do we have to change about the registration? Or so, yeah, listening in every sense, right?
I think that's such good advice, because I think planners too are so excited, right? And their planners are doers by nature. Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm off and running. Let me go. Oh, I hear you. I got, and they just jump right into tactics. Listening almost comes with a pause, listen, reflect, because it's true. Like, event planners are like, they just want to go. Like, they're energizer bunnies usually, that are all about get on to the next thing. Oh, I love that. That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. In the spirit of advice and giving, I like to end these discussions with reflections, if we can, on our learnings, our experiences. We're fortunate to be in the position of having experience behind us. Can you share what's the best advice you ever received in your career that's contributed to your success and where you're at today? I know there's been lots.
Yeah. Yeah, there has been lots. I was thinking about this on my way here. And I think if I can, I would share 2. So one that's been really helpful for me is it's not personal. And I don't mean that as an excuse for...
Oh, that's the advice? It's not personal?
Yeah.
That's the advice. Yeah, good one. Okay.
Yeah, it's not personal. So, but I don't mean that as an excuse for, like, capitalist companies to like abuse employees and take advantage of them, right? Or
of course, yeah.
But it's realizing that, like, when a decision gets made, or if you organized an event or picked a location and then it got changed, like, it's not personal, right? There's usually a reason for it, and it's not really about you. Now that means I think that we should, like, treat each other well and with compassion in the workplace and stuff. So, like, yeah. So it's not personal is a biggie for me. And then I think another one that it's not really career advice I ever got told, but it comes from Buddhist teachings and things that I've read around, we all have inherent value as humans. And so my work, I talk a lot about, like, the value you create at work, and that's the way to, if you want to get promoted, if you want to earn more money, you frankly have to create more value for the organization that they then reward, right? It's kind of that transaction. But none of that, so that's all very important. And if you have career ambitions, then that's great. And that's, my work. And also that your value at work has nothing to do with your value as a person. Like, your value as a person is just always, like, solid. So I think what I don't want people to take away from, either this conversation or my work in general, I don't want them to think that, like, oh, well, my value as a person is, dependent on whether my trade show generated 1 million in leads, right? It's not the same thing. So yeah, we can be, we can have our ups and downs at work, but we're always inherently valuable.
It's on a deeper level, and I love it. I appreciate that. That's really, really special. Thank you so much for being with us today. I value you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
That brings us to the end of today's conversation with Anthea Rowe. Thank you so much, Anthea, for sharing your perspective, your experience, and the incredible work you're doing in career coaching. Your insights into managing your career are incredibly valuable for anyone working in or around corporate events, especially our listeners that are growing and evolving in their roles. If you'd like to see more of what Anthea is up to, you can find her on LinkedIn by searching up Anthea Rowe, or her website, Exmplify.com, where she shares more keys to finding your voice and tips for success in building your career. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Interviews with the Pros.